Hey everybody, we're back for some more fun. We're going to do an opening today, and the opening we're doing is e4, e5, and we've come up with some novelties with the move order bishop c4. This is super killer stuff, guys. I wouldn't have wasted time making this video unless it was a really good, worth making a video on. This stuff is super awesome. I crush masters with this regularly, and after this video, you will too, because this is a pretty simple system to play. I recommend this anyone for their first e4, okay? And just by the way, if you're at the lower levels, when you play e4 here, they're going to do e5 back to you, like every time, right? Probably 9 out of your 10 games are probably in this, so maybe we should book up on e5 first, and you're in luck because I've been playing this stuff for 25 years now, and I've presented this for you. I hope you enjoy it. So the first thing we got to go over is the first 5 moves for white are pretty much the same, almost, no matter what they do. So like we were saying, the moves are e4. Don't worry about what black's doing. I'm just going to... So after bishop c4 is second, pawn to d3 is third, and then they'll do whatever. It doesn't matter. Bishop back is very important to do, and we'll do that, and then whatever they do. Pawn to c3. And this. You see those things right there? We make that, and that's how the opening goes. Now, we're going to give a little bit of an explanation why we just did these moves, and that's coming up first. Oh, actually... First, let's really quick, I do have to go. We do have to talk about the special exception of an early d5. So let me just do that real quick. Oh, it's such you. Okay, right, so like I was just saying, back. E4, E5, bishop C4, right? Knight F6 is very common. Pawn to D3. What if they do an early D5? This is something we have to talk about. This is a separate chapter. In fact, the reason we pull back the bishop so early is so that this D5 move does not hit the bishop. And what if they do an early D5 and the bishop is hit? That means we have to take the pawn. We have no choice. Why is that? Well, we can't go queen e2, which is what we would do if the bishop was back here. But we don't have time for queen e2. They're going to take this. No kidding. Okay, so the next thing, we can't really go back here, right? I'll give you a second to calculate why that's a bad idea. Because if we do this, they have this move. Simple enough. We take back. They're trading queens. That's the first problem. We didn't want to trade queens off. And then we're losing a pawn. That's a problem too. And then there's a fork on f2. I guess we would go here. But this is not a position we want to play. So that move does it back. Right. So if they do an early d5, when it hits our bishop on c4, we have no choice. After this, we have to play pawn takes pawn. And this is rather rare. You're not going to see this that often, but this changes everything because the pawn exchange means the center is opening up, and after this, we're basically saying knight f3 and castle and like rook e1 as soon as you can. So let's just say knight heir, and then whatever the heck they do, we're going to castle. And then whatever they do, well, actually, this is hanging, so they probably have to go like this. And then you just go here. This is the Philidor's defense with colors reversed. You have an extra move. You're not worse. You're just fine. Don't worry. You can play for a win from here. And you're not going to see this that much anyway. So let's go back, and let's get back to the good stuff. Okay. Next chapter is why do we play those 5 funny moves? There's only one way to find out. You gotta stay tuned. Oh, it's such a shoot. Okay, so here we are now. We're doing more stuff. E4, E5. Remember the funny maneuvers we did? Bishop C4. We can disregard what black's doing, but I'll make typical moves for them. We go D3 next. And after whatever, bishop back here is super important. And whatever, and then pawn to C3. Now, why do we do these moves? There are 3 reasons why. Let's start with the first one. Okay, the pawn on C3 is a nice little trick. I like it much better than putting a knight on C3. You know, a lot of you beginner players, you get positions like this and you go knight C3, right? And they do whatever, and then you do whatever, and then this comes in, and then whatever. And then you start coming in with moves like this, pressuring the knight, probably going to double our pawns now. There's nothing better. So this is counterplay that black inherently has in the E4, E5 system. Now, if we go back to back, right here, and then I guess here, pawn to C3 prevents their pieces from coming in here, and it's just, I'm telling you, you're going to love this pawn on C3. It just really has a prophylactic purpose. Can I say something else about this pawn on C3 right now? If even later, and I know this is not the best example, later sometimes they push this B pawn, right? And they try to trade this off. You can take this back. I don't have a good example now. I'll just do random nonsense. You guys know me, right? Take. Even if the pawn here is like weak and isolated, the C3 pawn is still doing its job, which is this. And you are going to love this pawn on C3 like that. So that is reason number 1 for having a pawn on C3. The prophylactics of controlling these squares. The second reason, let's go back out of that ridiculous variation. Okay, going back to a position like this, the second reason that we put the pawn on C3 is simply to put an escape square for the bishop. Just in case they want to make this funky move here and attack us. Listen to me. We do not want to trade our bishop for their knight. This would be an absolute freaking disaster, okay? If their knight comes here, we have a square to push this away. And that's the second reason for having a pawn on C3. You need that extra space to put the bishop there in case you need it. And by the way, we are threatening a fork, so they're going to have to move again. So their knight A5 move wasn't as good as they thought it was. So that's the second reason. Also, can we just go back a little bit on the same theme? Back. Let's say they go here, and we go here, and they go here. And of course, we're going here first. Let's say if they do this now, what do? Oh my goodness, no problem. We just come here. But bang. And next move is this, and then the bishop can go here if it wants to. I think we've exhausted to death everything we need to know about the second reason for the pawn on C3. It gives us an escape square for the bishop, not to mention holding these 2 squares down. Now, the next reason is the superpositional complicated one. I saved this for last because this is superpositional and complicated. So this deserves its own chapter. Let's do the positional complicated stuff in the next section. And you know what we're going to do now? Oh, it's a gesture. You are going to understand the positions you're playing at a very deep level, and this is the secret to your success. Your opponents are going to have no idea about what you're doing. And this gives this opening a very practical value, not to mention you're learning something about how to play closed positions. Okay, so let's go back to the battle stations. Let's go back to the battle stations and talk about reason number 3 for for doing this interesting setup right here with these bishops and pawns. This is the most brilliant part of the system, okay? The reason we do this, our strategy. We are going to maintain a white pawn on e4 and a black pawn on e5, and we're not changing that structure. This is our position we're playing. And so now, if they go pawn to d5, which is really their only pawn break in the position, we've already moved our bishop back, so this gives us the freedom to play queen e2. This is a super important part of the system. Okay, guys, here's the reason. If they take, we take back, and we have our bread and butter. We've maintained these two pawns right here, and that's just super awesome. So we did that right. What else? Back. One more thing. When you go queen e2, after they go d5, right, and then you go queen e2, sometimes they can push to d4. And it would be a major mistake to take this because all their pieces are coming alive. This is not good. Back. We simply go pawn to c4, maintaining a closed. You all see this is closed, right? And this bishop, which has been locked in, can just go here. Like, hello, I've got plenty of activity. So this bishop is not an issue. We can make this pawn chain, and you'll be very happy with this position if you play it. But let's go back to the bread and butter. Back. Yes, take. This is what we're aiming for. And that was the reason for those crazy moves that we did before, is to create this. Anyway, we have to talk about the closed position. Where the hell is this? Oh, right. We need to talk about this closed position again, and why is it a closed position, and why do we love it so much? Let's do another chapter. You know how we do it. Oh, it's a just shoot. Okay, now we're back with another chapter. I was too excited about that. This structure is our secret. It limits the play in the center. Have you ever heard this saying before? A premature attack on the flank is best countered by counterplay in the center. The flank, by the way, is the wing or the sides of the board. So going back. Okay, so having said that, we want to attack their king. This is our long-term plan. We didn't get to that yet, but we're going to do this, right? But if we attack their king prematurely, they can attack in the center, but we've just made a closed center. Look at this. The d5 break has already been made, and there's no longer a d-pawn, so we don't have to worry about that pawn break in the center, do we? No, we don't. And this f5 pawn, let's make a couple more moves. Let's go here. Okay. Now, the other break they might have is pawn to f5. This is never happening. Okay, first of all, this pawn is pinned by this beautiful bishop right here. And, okay, so first the king would have to get away. And then the knight, because it's blocking the pawn, the knight would have to get away. It's ridiculous to do all that. And when they finally make this move, let's just say this. When they finally make this move, I think we all agree this would be rather weakening. It's weakening. They're never going to play f5. That's what we're talking about. So, there's no d5 break. There's no f5 break. There's no pawn play in the center. Now, let's look for the piece play. Let's go back to the studio. Okay, piece play. All of the center squares are controlled by white. White can put a piece here if they want. Black cannot put their pieces here because the pawn controls this, and this pawn controls this. They cannot go here. They cannot go here. They cannot go here because their own pawn is sealing that square, so they can't go there. And as long as our pawn is very well defended, then they cannot come here anywhere. You get it now? Black has no counterplay in the center. And the best part is they are going to have no idea what you're doing to them. You're using advanced techniques to close the center. And now we can go on with our kingside attack. And that's very good. Another thing to mention, putting a knight on c6 is a really bad mistake for black. And they always do it. It's going to be about 10 or 20 moves before black realizes that their knight can't go anywhere because of our beautiful pawn on c3. This knight has nowhere to go. What it really should do is like plop in on f4. They're never going to figure that out. Don't worry. Okay, so the next chapter, we're going to talk about where the white pieces go and how we set it up. Oh, Mr. Just shoot.